Unearthing Joy by Goldie Mohammed is a sequel to her previous book, Cultivating Genius, where she advocates for reframing the approach to education and a focus on student empowerment, joy, and cultural relevance. My name is Carissa Thomas, and I read the book Unearthing Joy, a guide to culturally, historically responsive teaching and learning by Goldie Mohammed. The main thesis in her book is that curricula and learning experiences should be intentionally designed. They should be designed in a way that showcases students' identities, cultures, and histories of that student. All these things should happen simultaneously while fostering critical thinking, excellence in academia, and social justices. Mohammed argues that when you put joy at the forefront of teaching, educators are able to create learning environments that meet academic goals, but also nurture students' development and inspire a sense of purpose for creating culturally and historically responsive education. Essential arguments made by the thesis that I'm going to focus on are centering identity and culture in learning, the role of joy as a revolutionary act, and integrating social justice and equity. Centering identity and culture in learning. Everyone has the right to feel as though they belong, that they're seen, valued, and respected. Mohammed's thesis argues that often the traditional curriculum neglects identities and contribution of students from marginalized communities. This can create a disconnect in their lives and learning because the experiences that they've lived through have been devalued. However, Dr. Mohammed states that education should affirm and celebrate a student's cultural identities and their histories. In order for this to happen, the teacher can incorporate diverse texts, including people or voices who have historically been excluded from mainstream education, and provide first-hand perspectives by sharing personal experiences with the students. This will help the students continue to develop a strong sense of self while seamlessly fostering a sense of belonging. When students see themselves reflected in the curriculum, they feel valued, which fosters engagement and a sense of belonging. The role of joy as a revolutionary act. Centering joy in educational practices must be intentional. This is not done simply as a feel-good practice, but rather a revolutionary act in education. This is especially true of marginalized groups. According to the AI simulator that's attached to Google, the definition for a revolutionary act in education is teaching in a way that actively challenges existing power, structures, and inequities, particularly by empowering marginalized groups through education, promoting critical thinking, and advocating for social justices within the classroom. Mohammed describes joy as more than happiness. Joy is emotional resilience, intellectual fulfillment, and passion that is cultivated for learning. Educators can celebrate student achievements, calling positive attention to their strengths and designing and providing curriculum that's designed for student success with their happiness in mind. Students will have access to curriculum that will make learning exciting for them and allow for critical thinking, all while being meaningful to their education. Integrating social justice and equity. Societal issues, power, privilege, and systematic inequities must be addressed in education in Mohammed's approach. Mohammed links social justice to joy by showing the process of one discovering their voice and advocating for fairness. When you embed social justice into the classroom, you can allow students to critically examine situations around them in order to find solutions for these issues. They will then understand and be able to challenge societal structures that perpetuate injustice. As students are graduating, they're advocating for things such as equal employment opportunities and eventually fighting for equal access to healthcare regardless of race or income, and so much more. They can make a difference in the community and even the world around them. When classroom teachers provide examples of current events and allow students to explore projects happening within the community, students can address and solve real-world issues and feel as though they are making a difference. There are several pieces of evidence that Gholdy Muhammad uses in Unearthing Joy to support her thesis for creating culturally and historically responsive education. She draws on figures like W.E.B. Du Bois and other practices from the 19th century, showing that education has always been tied to identity as well as critical thinking. If you look through a historical lens, there's always a foundation laid for these practices rather than building a new model. Literacy is framed not just as reading and writing skills, but rather tools for understanding and shaping the world. When comparing sugar's history to identity, when you look at things like traditions of food, intellectualism, the history and the chemical composition, criticality, which is the role of sugar in systematic inequities and colonialism. And then if you also look at joy, you're able to look at healthier relationships with food. Dr. Muhammad reflects the culturally and historically responsive education in this approach. Currently, educational inequities often marginalize students of color through labels such as struggling readers because of the deficits they show, or grouping them into lower tier groups based on their testing performance. This focus is solely on what they lack instead of highlighting their potential and their capabilities. This is the opposite of what her practices are in cultivating joy, intellectualism, criticality, and student learning experiences. And I know I shouldn't put a word in here that I can't pronounce, but I pronounced it every single time until I started recording. The following are examples of planned curriculum, physical curriculum, and hidden curriculum that would go hand in hand with Dr. Gholdy Muhammad's practices. Planned curriculum is formal, intentional learning objectives that are provided by the educators. Dr. Muhammad would incorporate culturally responsive texts and units on social justice topics into her classroom. For example, a lesson on civil rights would be to study speeches made by Martin Luther King Jr., with the opportunity for students to write their own speech about experiences that they've lived through. Maybe their speech would be trying to convince their principal to include an extra recess during the day, regardless of age or grade, rather than the equal rights for all Americans, regardless of race. This aligns with fostering identity and intellect through engagement with diverse voices and histories. Physical curriculum is tangible and material aspects of the learning environment. Dr. Muhammad would argue that a classroom library should be stocked with bookshelves full of diverse genres, authors, and levels, with colors, sizes, and shapes that reflect the experiences and identities of the students within that classroom. The library could also house student or class-created works. Student Treasures Publishing is a website that allows you to create and publish your students' work for free. The process of creating and publishing a book offers resources that reflect on and affirm students' cultural backgrounds. It also showcases students' strengths and supports Muhammad's goal of creating joyful and identity-affirming spaces. Hidden curriculum is curriculum with implicit messages, values, and norms that are conveyed through practices, policies, and interactions within the educational environment. When you're able to establish classroom norms at the beginning of the school year, you create value in collaboration, respect of different perspectives, and possible critiques of injustices. For instance, having the students help you create the classroom rules, the teacher can emphasize the buy-in or show that all student contributions are valuable and it is each student's responsibility to abide by those sets of rules. This aligns with Muhammad's commitment to encouraging students to question the world around them in order to reshape it. All the examples that I shared contribute to Muhammad's holistic approach to teaching, ensuring that the student grows academically, emotionally, socially, and as well as culturally. Gholdy Muhammad's Unearthing Joy, a guide to culturally and historically responsive teaching and learning, aligns primarily with the learner-centered position on the curriculum continuum. This is because Muhammad's approach emphasizes the importance of focus on students' lived experiences and strengths, student engagement, and empowerment and personalized learning, making their voices and perspectives the focal point of instruction. Muhammad prioritizes the development of the whole child, taking into account their individual experiences and cultural knowledge. Students are active participants in their education, helping them to shape the direction of their learning based on their interests, strengths, and needs. The curriculum is also adapted to support the diverse ways in which students learn rather than imposing a one-size-fits-all approach, which is the focus of the learner-centered framework. Muhammad would likely align most closely with personalized learning or mass customized learning, MCL for short, for several reasons. Cultural relevance and individual needs are something that she highlights in her book. Student agency and voice and social and emotional growth are also things that she highlights in her book. Personalized learning tailors the learning experience to meet the unique interests, needs, and strengths of individual students. This model would align with Muhammad's focus on creating an educational experience that affirms student identities and backgrounds. The importance of joy and empowerment is often highlighted in learning. Personalized learning allows learners to take ownership of their learning paths, make choices about their education, and engage in meaningful activities to them. Educators are encouraged to address social-emotional learning, not just academic growth. This resonates with Muhammad's belief in nurturing the whole child. Dr. Muhammad influenced my beliefs about the role of curriculum on education at the national level because I think the arguments she's making are relevant in our society today. I feel as though her call for joy and identity to be the foundation of curriculum is imperative for creating environments where all students are seen. They have the right to feel valued, empowered, worthy, and important. When students can see themselves and their interests reflected in what they learn, they're more likely to engage, show perseverance, determination, and thrive. Curriculum can be used as a tool for academic achievement and social-emotional development when education is culturally responsive. Joy plays a pivotal role in learning because it fosters intrinsic motivation and a deeper connection to the material, especially in marginalized communities. Ideally, in the district that I currently work in, we would have a combination plate of multiple curricula. I would choose personalized learning, project-based learning, and scripted curriculum to be developed. Scripted curriculum provides clear structured instructions for teachers, which is beneficial for consistency and routine. This is also something that can help new teachers or teachers who need more guidance and can always be scaffolded away once they are more comfortable. It should be developed by curriculum developers at the state level to ensure that it aligns with state standards. The districts would then control it so there is uniformity across all classrooms, but teachers would still have the ability to adapt it to specific student needs. This would be assessed with quizzes based on content covered from the curriculum, but could also be more creative and be assessed with oral presentations. Within my current district, I'm a special education teacher. I think that personalized learning would be a beneficial curriculum. Personalized learning tailors instruction to the individual needs, strengths, and interests of each student. This is particularly beneficial for diverse learners in a mixed ability classroom such as the one that I teach in. Teachers and support staff, along with technology experts, would collaborate to integrate personalized learning strategies, including differentiated tasks. Teachers would also have control of the adaptation of the individualized learning paths with guidance from school leadership teams or administration. Assessment will focus on individual progress rather than just a mastery of content standards. Project-based learning encourages collaboration, problem-solving, critical thinking, and creativity with active learning. Curriculum developers should lay the framework, but teachers should design projects that integrate multiple subjects and connect to the real world. This is something that I have a little bit of experience with in our new curriculum collaborative classroom, where we're able to collaborate and critically think, along with solve problems together as a group. Rubrics are created in order to assess the learning in project-based learning so that we can evaluate the process as well as the final product. In Unearthing Joy, a guide to culturally and historically responsive teaching and learning, Dr. Gholdy Muhammad presents a framework for culturally responsive teaching that emphasizes the importance of joy in education. This text argues that if you want to engage and empower students, especially those from marginalized communities, historically, educators must create learning environments where students see themselves, their interests, and their cultures reflected. She supports this by integrating cultural and historical relevance, critical consciousness and activism, and relationship building and care. Students learn best when they see their cultures, histories, and experiences being reflected in their curriculum. It gives them a sense of being valued and seen and allows them a sense of belonging in the classroom. Muhammad stresses the importance of nurturing critical consciousness in students, helping them to understand social justice issues. This then empowers them to challenge systemic inequalities and using education as a tool for social change. When students feel comfortable, they trust you, and trust creates safe spaces for students to fully engage in the learning process. I leave you with one question: what brings you joy in education?